Welcome to 99, brought to you by Prolificate.com, the crossroads of the sacred and the secular. I'm your host, Andrew Church. The idea for 99 comes from the Islamic teaching that there are 99 names for the divine, and each one has its own meaning. Every week, or every episode, each episode we meet up for 9 minutes to explore teachings from all the world religions to help us make sense of our lives. I always like to put the world outside on pause by just breathing together a couple of times. So I invite you to settle in just a minute, make your belly nice and soft, and from the center of that softness, we're going to start with an in-breath, and I'll count. Ready? Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again. Inhale. Hold. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How do you know when you are at the end of something? Have you ever been to a going away party? You know how there's that sadness initially because something is ending? The person is leaving the company or moving away somewhere else. It feels to me kind of like a closing up, a book where the last page has just been read. Sometimes at those moments, though, my mind wanders and I think for a minute that it's also kind of exciting because the person is about to begin something new. And what if the new thing is about to be the best experience of that person's life? What if they're about to meet the person they're going to spend their life with? Well, this episode, we're exploring the divine name Ya Fatah. In the book, Physicians of the Heart, the authors say that Fatah means to open something with something else, like a key. They say that even in the midst of despair, with this key, we can awaken. This episode, we're exploring the divine name Ya Fatah. In the book, Physicians of the Heart, the authors say that Fatah means to open something with something else, like a key. They say that even in the midst of despair, with this key, we can awaken to love and ecstasy. Now, what's that about? Love and ecstasy? I gotta admit, those aren't words I use very often. And in the midst of despair? Come on. But what if that really is what it's all about? Being able to expand ourselves, to stretch our own beings enough to be able to hold those two extremes at the same time. Love, even the ecstasy kind of love. Love, even the ecstasy kind of love, right? There with despair at the same time. As Barack Obama used to say, come on now. As part of my seminary training, I served as a chaplain in a local hospital. Some days were quiet and sweet in that hospital, but other days I saw things that I'll never be able to unsee. People in their most despairing states. You know, as a chaplain, you're right there with the first responders when somebody comes into the trauma center. And in fact, sometimes the chaplain is also the last responder when there's nothing else to be done and life and death are not in human hands anymore. I remember taking all that emotion and grief and despair on myself, carrying it. Even though it wasn't my own emotion, it didn't matter. Emergency workers talk about the sponge effect. Just by being in a traumatic environment, you soak it up like a sponge soaks up water. On the evening of one particular horrific day of greeting a stream of life support or life flight helicopters that seemed like they arrived nonstop, and of accompanying families who were living the worst days they'll ever have, I remember being exhausted and heading home. I got in the elevator with a young man and woman. and the woman was in a wheelchair with a new baby. As I weakly smiled at that glowing pair, they lit up, and I learned that this newborn, who had been very sick, was finally getting to go home to a bright future. I managed to hold back the tears until I got outside into the fading light of dusk, and then it all came flowing. That sponge was being wrung out. All the grief and the fear and the upset, it was all in there. And also the joy and the hope and beauty of new life was in there. Is that Al-Fatah? Or is Al-Fatah the key to my being able to hold not either or, but both and? Is it the key to not have to choose between joy or grief, but to grow and stretch ourselves to be vast enough and strong enough to hold both? Despair and beauty. Sorrow and gratitude. Pain and laughter. You know, it's a 30-minute walk home from the hospital, and I cried the whole way that night. And I also laughed, and I smiled. When I got home, she asked, "So, how was your day?" "Fine," she said. Big day, huh?" I think she knew. And I think you do too. You know, Carl Sagan used to say that you are made of star stuff. He meant that our bodies contain every element that has been here since the beginning of time. We are also made of stories and emotions and something deeper and more vast than any word could ever describe. May you remember this vastness when you need it. Next time you're feeling lost or without hope, look around you for joy. I promise you it's there. And the next time life is easy and sweet and good, I bid you look around you, because there may be someone who needs a hand, your hand, or your voice. My friends, that is how we can get along, by reminding each other. So until next time, we'll finish today's journey by taking 2 more breaths together. Let's breathe in for 7 this time. Now again, from your belly, a very soft place. I want you to expand. Ready? Inhale. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. One more time. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. You know, I love to hear from you. I welcome your questions, your thoughts, your feedback. Links to get in touch are in the show notes in your podcast app or at prolificate.com. So, go out into the world in peace and have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. And honor all beings, including